My name is Alex, a 24-year-old software engineer. Life had always been a series of routines and predictable patterns, much like the code I wrote every day. I felt secure in this monotony, finding comfort in the familiar hum of my computer and the predictable chatter of my colleagues. That Thursday started like any other. I arrived at the office, coffee in hand, ready to dive into a new day of coding. As I settled into my routine, I felt a sense of contentment. This was my world, a place where logic ruled and everything made sense. Mid-morning, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Unexplained phenomena observed in the sky worldwide. I glanced at it, a flicker of curiosity breaking through my focus. But soon, I shrugged it off and returned to my work. After all, such news was for dreamers and scientists, not for someone like me, grounded in the practical world of software. Leaving the office that evening, I noticed a change in the atmosphere. The usual buzz of the city seemed subdued, and people were gathered in small groups, looking up at the sky. A sense of unease crept over me. Joining them, I looked up and felt a shiver run down my spine. The sky was painted with surreal, shimmering colors. I stood there, transfixed, feeling a mix of awe and apprehension. This wasn't something my logical mind could easily dismiss. Walking home, I couldn't shake the eerie feeling that had settled over me. The vibrant display in the sky was beautiful, yes, but also deeply unsettling. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing a world much bigger and more mysterious than the one I knew. I felt small, insignificant, and suddenly very vulnerable. That night, I lay in bed, the image of the illuminated sky etched in my mind. Sleep was elusive as I grappled with a growing sense of dread. What did this phenomenon mean? Was it a warning? The comfort of my predictable life seemed to have shattered, leaving me exposed to a universe I realized I knew nothing about. As I finally drifted into a restless sleep, I couldn't escape the feeling that the world as I knew it was changing, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. In the weeks following the sky's strange display, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. The news was filled with reports of bizarre weather patterns and unexplained events. At work, conversations shifted from mundane topics to theories about what was happening. I tried to immerse myself in coding, seeking refuge in the logical structure of my work, but a nagging sense of anxiety persisted. I remember the day the world truly changed. It was a Wednesday. I was in the middle of debugging a complex piece of software when my colleague Sarah gasped. We rushed to the window and saw a massive, dark object looming ominously in the sky. A cold fear gripped me. This was no longer a distant spectacle, but a present, threatening reality. The city plunged into chaos. Alarms blared, and people flooded the streets in a desperate attempt to flee. I found myself being swept along by the crowd, my heart pounding in my chest. The logical part of my brain struggled to make sense of it all, but fear was the dominant emotion. Where could we go? What could we do against such an inexplicable force? As the object descended, casting a vast shadow, the world around me turned into a nightmarish blur. The familiar streets where I had walked every day now felt alien and threatening. The sounds of panic, the cries, the sirens, the chaos merged into a cacophony that echoed my internal turmoil. I remember running without direction, driven by the primal instinct to survive. But with each step, despair grew within me. The realization hit hard. We were powerless. This was not a problem that could be solved by human ingenuity or technology. We were at the mercy of something far beyond our understanding. That night, I found myself alone in an alley, the chaos of the city a distant hum. I sat there, feeling utterly lost and defeated. The world I knew, the life I had built, seemed to be crumbling around me. The sense of security I had always taken for granted was gone, leaving me exposed and frightened. As I looked up at the dark object in the sky, now a permanent fixture, I felt a profound sense of insignificance. My worries about deadlines, projects, and the trivialities of my daily life seemed laughably petty in the face of such an incomprehensible threat. Sleep was a distant memory. I wandered through the night, a lone figure amidst the shadows of a world that was falling apart. The fear was constant, a heavy weight in my chest, but there was also a growing resignation. The future, once a horizon of possibilities, now felt like a closing trap. The chapter of life as I knew it was closing, and the next was shrouded in darkness and uncertainty. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, it brought no comfort, only the harsh reality of a new world, a world in which we were no longer the masters of our destiny. The days that followed were a blur of despair and confusion. The once bustling city was now a ghost town, its streets empty and silent. I wandered aimlessly, feeling a deep sense of loss. The familiar had become alien, and the future, once filled with promise, was now a dark void. I recall walking past the empty buildings, the echoes of my footsteps a stark reminder of how alone I felt. The sense of community, the hustle of everyday life, the simple joys I had taken for granted, all had vanished. The weight of this new reality pressed down on me, suffocating and relentless. Then came the night that changed everything. As I stared up at the massive object in the sky, a voice echoed in my mind. It was clear, resonant, and utterly alien. "We are the harbingers," it said. My initial reaction was disbelief, a desperate hope that I was dreaming. But the voice continued, revealing truths that shattered the last remnants of my understanding of the world. The harbingers spoke of our existence as a mere speck in the vast cosmos, a failed experiment in their eyes. Each word felt like a blow, stripping away the illusions I had held about our place in the universe. I felt a mix of terror and awe, a deep sense of humility in the face of such incomprehensible power. I tried to deny it, to cling to the rational, scientific understanding I had always relied on. But deep down, I knew the truth. We were not alone, and our existence was at the mercy of these cosmic entities. The following days were filled with a profound sense of emptiness. The harbinger's revelation lingered in my mind, a constant reminder of our impending doom. The world around me seemed to reflect this hopelessness. Its colors faded, its sounds muted. I wandered through the desolate city, lost in thought. The buildings and streets, once symbols of human achievement and progress, now felt like hollow shells, monuments to our hubris and naivete. The loneliness was overwhelming. I longed for a connection, for someone to share this burden with, but I was alone in a world that had lost its meaning. The simple act of surviving each day became a struggle against the despair that threatened to consume me. As I gazed at the harbinger's object in the sky, a symbol of our impending end, I felt a deep resignation. We had reached the twilight of our existence, and there was no turning back. The future, once a canvas of limitless potential, was now a closed book, its final chapter written by forces beyond our control. In this new world, stripped of illusions and false hopes, I found a strange peace. It was the peace of acceptance, of surrendering to the inevitable. The end was coming, and there was nothing I could do but wait and reflect on the brief, flickering moment that was our time in the cosmos. The end came slowly, then all at once. The days merged into each other, a monotonous gray that mirrored my despair. I had stopped counting time. What was the point when every day was a march towards oblivion? The sky had become a constant reminder of our fate. The object, once a distant, ominous presence, now filled the horizon, its surface swirling with unfathomable patterns. Its beauty was stark, mesmerizing, and terrifying all at once. I found myself spending hours just staring at it, lost in its alien complexity. The world around me was dying. The streets were empty, the buildings crumbling, nature itself seeming to give up in the face of our inevitable end. I wandered through this apocalyptic landscape, a solitary figure amidst the ruins of human civilization. The harbingers began their final act. The sky cracked, a jagged line splitting the heavens. From this rift, darkness poured forth, a void so absolute it seemed to swallow everything in its path. I watched, frozen in a mix of horror and fascination. The end was no longer an abstract concept. It was here, unfolding before my very eyes. The air vibrated with the sound of reality tearing apart. It was a physical sensation, a pressure that seemed to squeeze the very air from my lungs. I felt a deep, primal fear, an instinctive understanding that this was the end of everything. In those final moments, as the darkness enveloped the world, I thought of my life. My dreams, my ambitions, the love I had experienced, the joy of discovery all seemed so insignificant now. I realized how small and fleeting our existence had been, a mere blip in the vastness of the cosmos. I stood alone, watching the world fade away. There was no dramatic last stand, no heroic struggle for survival. Just a quiet surrender to the inevitable. I felt a profound sadness, not just for myself, but for all of humanity, for all the dreams and achievements that would vanish into oblivion. And then there was nothing. The darkness engulfed me, a cold, absolute void. In that final moment, I felt a strange sense of peace. It was the end, yes, but also a release from the fear and uncertainty that had plagued me. I let go, allowing myself to be swept away into the eternal night. The world, with all its beauty and chaos, its love and suffering, its hope and despair, had come to an end. And in its place, there was only silence and darkness. The story of humanity, our brief, tumultuous journey, was over. And I was there to witness its final, fading breath.